people who are joining us that we are going to have 2 spots for public comment. One will be right after agenda item C, the proposed instructional model for next year. Public comment will be before the board votes, and the other one will be where it's placed at item number 7. With that, we move to celebrations.
Good evening, members of the board. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to provide an update on the fabulous work the Special Programs Department has done during the COVID-19 school closure. I just completed my 39th year, yes, that is 39 years, in education, and never, ever have I seen such extraordinary effort in such a short length of time by any department. The staff collaborated with students, parents, and peers to provide services to students through distance learning and supplemental resources. Teachers and paras delivered curriculum materials, supplies, food, and assistive technology equipment to families throughout the school closure period. Case managers met with families and completed 448 prior written notices and continuous learning plans. Our high school teachers and school psych assisted students in meeting all graduation requirements during the shutdown. The school psychologists, OT and SLPs, completed evaluations and reevaluations to the best of their ability during the shutdown. We had 2 paras complete 40 hours of training to become registered behavioral technicians. They will take their national boards this summer. We also had 31 general ed and special ed certificated staff take a 6-hour workshop on co-planning and co-teaching during the school closure. Again, I want to thank the staff for their efforts to recoup financial resources for our district. All IEPs passed safety net this year, and we will receive $122,400 back from the state in order for us to assist in continuing to serve students. Finally, the Special Programs Department would not run as it does without the 3 dynamic administrative assistants, Kathy, Gemma, and Sue. And I just want to say one final thing. I am here on year 5 in Ellensburg, and I am grateful for the team that I get to work with, the teachers that I get to work with, the executive board. Ginger is a fabulous support. Kelly is a hoot and wonderful to work with. And I want to thank you, board, for just supporting me over this 5 years as we really have done some great things in the district. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
I just want to add, Patty and her team have really done, it was a heavy lift this year. When we had to close the schools, it was a heavy lift for special education. They immediately went into action. They contacted all the families. They've been in ongoing contact. Patty recently did several focus groups with our parents of students who are on individual education plans to see what their needs are and looking at next year. And she shared that feedback with me. So really, thank you, Patty, to you and your team. Just both years I've been here have been amazing, but your team just really went the extra mile to school closure, and it is just truly phenomenal.
Yep, they did. Thank you.
Patty, the board wants to thank you and all of your staff in the Special Programs Department for bringing this forward and for you writing the letter to the board. It did not go unrecognized, the heavy lift that was on our staff in the Special Programming Department and for our students and families that qualified for those services. So thank you for all the hard work you do. And I swear every time I go into district office, Patty is sitting there working. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So a couple of other celebrations. Again, a huge celebration to our 2020 graduating seniors. And kudos to, and that's you, Miss McKenzie and Amethyst. I bet you guys are excited. And just a thank you to the high school staff. They were just phenomenal. Haley Neboychek in particular, in coordinating the graduation, the virtual graduation, and the fireworks were stunning. Just really landed the year. It wasn't what we wanted. It was very disappointing and very hard to not have a regular graduation, but just really appreciate all the efforts of the high school staff in closing the year. And really just another thank you to our administrators, our teachers, our paraeducators. They really worked hard to close the year. We had all these different changes with grading, for example, and they spent a lot of extra time reviewing a lot of different assignments that came in with that ability to be able to have an incomplete. And so really thank you to our staff for working extra hard in this virtual world that we're in to close the school. A huge thank you to our food and nutritions. As we shared earlier, we served over 100,000 meals to our families during the whole closure time period, which is really phenomenal. And so kudos to Alexandra and Eric in transportation and nutrition, our paras, our bus drivers, our nutrition staff, just a phenomenal job in really reaching out and providing food to our families. So we have a lot to be proud of here in ESD.
Thank you for those updates. Now we're on to B, the welcoming of our new student board reps. But before we welcome our new student board reps, I just want to take a moment to thank Mackenzie and Amethyst. Thank you for coming to all of the meetings. And thank you for, I believe your words last meeting, Mackenzie, was you had a legacy project. So continuing the sister school work that you've set up to do, and Amethyst, all of your work in facilitating at the state level mental health for our students. Thank you for using your voice. And the world is a little bit more hopeful to me, knowing that there are young ladies like you going out into it. And now I need to apologize to our new student board reps. I'm going to do the best that I can with your names, and I am so very sorry if I get them wrong. But we are happy to announce and welcome that we will be joined by Jaden Burrows and Olivia Berthen Koch. Sorry, Olivia, I know I did not get that right at all.
That's okay, it's Berthon Cook.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And welcome to the board.
Yeah, thank you, I'm excited.
Mackenzie and Amethyst, I'll just give you this time if you want something to say. I didn't check in with you beforehand, so you can also choose not to.
I just want to say that this has been a huge learning experience for me. I have gained a lot of experience with public speaking and using my voice and reaching out to communities I otherwise never would have, like the Japanese department at our school, for example. And it's just been a wild ride, and I'm so glad I did it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else on the board who wanted anything to say before we move on to the next agenda item?
Well, I just want to say that it was an honor to participate in the selection of our new board reps. It was a difficult honor because we had splendid candidates, and I'm really excited to welcome Olivia and Jaden to their new roles.
And I would like to say thank you to our outgoing board reps. You guys have done an amazing job really taking on some projects from the Japanese sister city to the cell phone policy for the high school, and really showing that students can take on not just a ceremonial but a practical role and actually help lead and be a voice for the students.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say creating or getting the student senate back together to do that cell phone project was an amazing and hopefully continuous achievement. It's something that we really need to get the student voice out there. And Amethyst, thank you for working with she was working with the state suicide prevention programs going on, which I think is wonderful. We've had some bad experiences here with that, and I know that other places around the state have as well. So it's something we really need at that level, and high school kids can talk to each other better about that than we can, us older guys, you know. So thank you both.
Sorry, I want to be able to say something to Amethyst and Mackenzie. It was a great experience working with both of you. I think we are so fortunate to have the students that we have. You will be missed greatly, and thank you for all your work on the board. And I was with Meg as well with the screening and selection of our new student board members, and Meg was absolutely right. Like, we had some great students. It was a very hard decision, and just so pleased that we're moving forward. So thank you all. You all are testaments that our great students exist at Ellensburg. So thank you.
Thank you. And now,
yes, it is an action item of recognizing that they are coming in. So there will need to be a vote.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve our 2 new student board members.
I'll second it.
Jennifer has moved and Jason has seconded. Is there any further discussion? Then with a roll call vote, Dan?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Now we are on to agenda item C, the proposed instructional model for 2020-21 school year. Ginger, you are on mute.
All right, just getting set up here. Okay. Not sure what happened there. Let's try it again. Huh. Not sure why. Let's try from current slide. All right. Well, I'm not sure why it's doing that, so we'll just leave it like this. So I'm really excited. We've done a lot of work together to really be very intentional and thorough in looking at the different types of models that we might have available for next year. All right, I'm just going to go with it now. So the first thing that I want to start with is our board ends. And the board ends really guide everything that we do, as you know. And when we're thinking about the right instructional model for next year, we really need to look through the lens of our board ends. And so as a reminder, really the foundation of our organization really is knowing that we are giving our students opportunities to have strong future-ready skills, which then allow them to be successful in a changing world and successful citizens, actually, because we don't want just students to know the knowledge, we want them to be able to apply it. We want them to be able to see real-world problems, and because they have a real solid foundation academically, that they're able to know how to participate and be that active, productive citizen. The other important end is connections. That social emotional support is really important as well. So we're definitely thinking about all 3 of these board ends as we were looking at the different models. Before I get started, I want to say, just to begin with, and I'll say it again, that my intention tonight is to give you one recommendation. As a result of a very thorough process, we had over 200 stakeholders that included staff members, parents, and students who participated in focus groups. And we had over 1,000 people fill out the online survey that went out to all of our parents and staff members. So what's the wonderful thing I love about Ellensburg is people really are eager to participate and have a voice, and just really want to say thank you to all of our staff members and parents who participated in one of those ways of giving us feedback. I'd also like to say that irregardless of part of the recommendation also includes, we will have a online virtual academy that's will allow students to be ESD students. We are in the process of selecting an online program similar to what regular online schools have for this online academy. And any parent who wants their student to be a part of it may do that. So that's already in place. So what we will be proposing is a recommendation for that kind of in-person pathway where students are actually physically at the school. And at the same time, we're going to run another pathway alongside it, which is an online pathway. And I will talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to front load the conversation with that any parent who just decides that they don't want their student physically at school can choose to be a part of that online program. And it's with ESD. Those students will be able to participate in sports, all the extracurricular things that we have to offer here as an ESD online student. So one of the first models that we looked at was the possibility of bringing all students back. And we looked at the models, and these were suggested models that were mentioned in the OSPI document that came out as a result of a statewide study group that they had. So in order to bring all students back full-time, 5 days a week, we would certainly ensure that they have access to Chromebooks as needed. The safety requirements would be in place. Face coverings are required, as we know from the governor's proclamation yesterday, and maybe potential exceptions. We'd be running those by Dr. Larson if there were medical reasons, and working with families and doctors around that. Physical distancing is one of our major challenges with this model. Right now, the recommendation, it says that 6 foot will be promoted to the extent possible. When we did measurements with some of our fuller classes, and especially like at Morgan Middle School, which will be very full next year, it's right now, we really can't meet that to the full extent to have every single classroom, if we brought all students back, having them spaced 6 foot apart, especially we'd really have to work hard at looking at a lunch option. And that was also true at when looking at our elementary schools. And some of our high school classrooms for that matter that are already pretty full. This model, just like other ones, would include enhanced cleaning and safety protocols. One of the other things that would need to happen would be an adaptation would be elementary classrooms would have to stay together at recess. So, you know, the idea is you try to keep the same kids together throughout the day. We, as much as possible, we try to ensure that materials wouldn't be shared between students. And certainly the advantage of having students back every day is those social emotional supports, the bonding with their peers and bonding with their classroom teacher. The other model that we looked at was a hybrid, and the model that we're suggesting right now is more of an A-B type model. So we would divide the students into 2 groups, an A group and a B group, and try to have it evenly as possible, and also try as much as we can have parents or children that are part of the same family be in the same group, so that they're not divided between 2 different groups. We wouldn't be able to do that in all cases, but we're really trying hard. If we were to do a hybrid, we would make every attempt to make that happen. And right now we're looking at students being in an A group and a B group, A being on Monday, B being on Tuesday. Wednesday being a day for teachers for planning and professional development, professional learning communities, those types of activities on a Wednesday. And then Thursday, the A group comes back, a Friday, the B group. I did talk to Dr. Larson, and when I'm done going through the PowerPoint, I'm gonna invite Dr. Larson to give us his input around the A-B model. Some people had said, well, would it make more sense? Is it worth it medically, as far as safety is concerned and cleaning, to have kids do Monday A, Tuesday A, Wednesday teacher, and then the Bs on Thursday and Friday. But in talking with teachers and some of the feedback that we got from parents, some parents were saying, I don't want my student to have 5 days of online without that touching base 5 days in a row. And in talking with Dr. Larson, he and I talked about a little bit earlier today, didn't really feel like there'd be that much of an advantage to having 2 A days at the beginning of the week and 2 B days at the end of the week. That in general, it may be better to do an A and a B Wednesday and then an A and a B on Thursday and Friday. So that's the model, the hybrid model part of the recommendation that I'll be making to you as a board. We also recognize that our students with individual education plans may need to attend daily, and especially students that are in certain programs. And Patty we're working together with Patty to ensure that students meet the goals on their IEP plans. And as the IEP plan directs, we would be bringing some of those students back on a daily basis, even if we were in a hybrid model. Some of the advantages, of course, it reduces the number of students that are in a classroom. And certainly while they're on campus, they would need to wear masks, and we would keep the social distancing requirements. And they would have a Chromebook available to them. We're looking at the possibility of buying some extra Chromebooks as needed with the COVID CARES money that we received from the state. And certainly we'd have those social emotional supports in place as well. Again, the virtual academy is a possible choice for all families. 5 days a week would be theirs, but students, they would have a Chromebook for sure. Again, we're going to select a high quality online program, have those social emotional supports in place. Teachers, we would have a couple of teachers overseeing the online program and be touching base with students on a regular basis and kind of monitoring the progress of students in this online environment. And again, the special education team also will be working with families to bring in students as needed for different types of therapy that might be required. The process that we use, this just kind of gives you an overview. Even before the focus groups, we worked real collaboratively together with principals. They went and talked with their faculties about these different types of models, either bringing all students back or doing a hybrid. So they had a lot of feedback. We met several times even before the focus groups. And then when we had the focus groups, we had over 200 stakeholders, as I said earlier. And you can see the dates of the different meetings that we had. And then our online survey closed on Tuesday. So we did, really the goal of a focus group is to help people understand each other's perspectives, to really be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes. So if I came into a focus group really wanting my kid back every day, for example, as a result of a focus group, I had an opportunity to hear a perspective of maybe another parent who really favored having more of a hybrid program. And having that dialogue, I know it was really helpful for me. I had a principal share that that person was thinking one way when he went into the focus groups and was thinking very differently as a result of, or was able to see different perspectives after participating in the focus groups. We also did a straw poll, which was not a vote either way, and we're not tallying up votes, but it was just to give us an idea of what would people prefer, just to take the temperature of the group. So our first groups that we had were elementary and secondary teachers, our focus groups. You can see what the results were for that. The blue bringing all students back, and the orange more of the rotating hybrid model. And the question was to select what you thought would be best for Ellensburg School District. And so that was our teacher feedback. And then we had elementary and secondary parents. And same thing, we asked them that same question. There's this little one gray in the middle because there was one parent who selected both. So we felt like it was important to have them represented on the graph. So you can see again, blue being bringing everyone back, orange being the hybrid, and this being the elementary parents and then our secondary parents. And then we wanted to ask some specific questions around a virtual academy. It's kind of interesting with both elementary and secondary. We had more parents saying that they were pretty interested in having their students back in school and wouldn't, either way, whether it's hybrid or bring all students back, would want them at school as opposed to the two being in the virtual academy. And then you can see some of the other responses there around the virtual academy. And then we had our stakeholder meeting, and we had a little over 70 people. I think it was close to 75. And we had a mixture of staff members, parents, and we had some students in there as well. And we tried to come to consensus to see if one model would emerge. And we were pretty split on that. But it was interesting with the stakeholder poll. There was more folks in favor of the hybrid than the bring all students back. And the colors changed right here. So I want to be able to point that out. So then we did the survey. And again, we had over 1,000 people respond to the survey. And Matt did a great job really digging into it and pulling out the numbers in the different groups. So you can see we asked several different kinds of questions. We wanted to see how teachers would feel. Would it make a difference if they had a student in the school district or not? So you can kind of see the results there for that. And then non-teachers, so our classified staff, and it's classified staff that have students in school. And here the blue again does represent bringing all students back, the orange being the hybrid, as opposed to staff members who didn't have a student in our school district. And then parent guardians with students in general. And you can kind of see how those panned out. And then we looked at by levels. So elementary school, the blue again being a yes to bringing all students back, a no to bringing all students back, orange being that they would support. And the question here is, would you support it? And we felt like that was important because I think the honest truth of next year is going to be, we can start out with a certain recommendation or model, but nobody can really predict what the virus will do. And many of the pandemic graphs kind of show the virus being like a roller coaster throughout the year next year, or at least till we're hoping February or March that we have a vaccine. And so with that, it may be, we may have to be kind of fluid. We may have to, at some point, even switch possibly between a hybrid and a having all students there, and even to a totally online. So we wanted to get a feel for what people supported. And so the middle here is middle school. Obviously, this is high school. And then we also thought, well, if a parent has a student in elementary and middle school, because we have many families, and we're really I feel so fortunate and thankful that we have families that have several children in our school district at different levels. So we also gave them a chance to weigh in if they had students in more than one level within the schools. We also tried to do some initial types of measurements, and we'd have to go back in after we decide on how we're going to start the year next year and do some more precise types of measurements. But just in looking at it, to have the 6 foot apart with just a kind of a desk and a chair, no tables. On average in the high school, 20 to 23 students could do that. And that would be literally taking everything out. Like some of our amazing elementary teachers have tried to really make their rooms feel more like at home by having couches and bean bags and those kinds of things. but for the sake of sanitation, as well as being able to do the physical spacing, we're really looking at having to replace some of the tables that require 2 kids to sit close together, taking those out and ordering tables and chairs so that we could space kids out in a scenario that looks more like this. And this would be literally, if you had, you know, some of our tables and chairs against the wall, you could possibly fit up to 20 to 23. Some of our smaller labs, no. In a science classroom, we have the mainly lab tables, so it'd be a little less students to put in there. And then you can see on average what the elementary would look like. And Morgan, the older section classrooms, not holding as many. The cubbies are those little square areas that are upstairs where you have the whiteboard. And we are going to order chair and tables there. You can fit maybe 4 it says 6. I'd have to, I guess we probably have some sticking out in the hallway to do that. But we may have to use those spaces next year, even if we go hybrid, because many of their classrooms are pretty full. So that just gives us a rough estimate of what we'd be looking at the 6-foot distancing. So again, major challenges that we see. There's lots of, you know, either way there's challenges. But the deal breaker ones, I think, is around the concern about students wearing masks all day, 5 days a week. When they're outside and they're 6-foot distancing, and I'll let Dr. Larson weigh in on that. I don't think they have to wear their masks. And so, you know, in my mind, we probably need to do some more professional development on outdoor education. It's a good opportunity for teachers to get their students outside, where the kids and the teacher could possibly, if they're staying 6 foot apart, could possibly have some relief from wearing a mask all day. The 6-foot distancing is really, it's really the limiting factor right now. Because of lunches, they absolutely have to be 6 foot apart at lunch, and in the classroom. And in the classrooms, it just isn't working as well. Ideally, you want to try to space them as much as we can on the bus. And talking with Dr. Larson, because most of our bus rides are fairly short, if all the students wear their masks and we roll down the windows, he would consider, you know, allowing us to be able to do that, because the bus route isn't the same as a student sitting in a classroom for 3 or 4 hours. And then certainly, you know, we just really need to have tight cleaning routines. We are in the process of purchasing, I want to call them, they're like the Ghostbuster machines with the hoses that have disinfectant, and Dale and Brian are working really hard to set up a routine where at the end of each day we'd be able to wipe down all the surfaces that are frequently used, like the door handles, similar railings that we did this year, but then also looking at the possibility of disinfecting the rooms each night by using that fogger. Hybrid model, we know a huge challenge with that is childcare for working parents. We heard that several times, multiple times in the survey during the 3 days of stay-at-home online time for students. I know Kittitas County is maybe applying for a grant in that area, and invited Tasha, I think it's on Monday of next week. We'll be taking a look at that, but certainly we understand that that's a challenge. I also think that another kind of a theme that we saw in the survey data was a need to streamline and improve the distance learning model. And so by purchasing that online program, we would be encouraging teachers, as they're able to also use it to be kind of like a backbone to lean back on, to help decrease their workload overall during both the hybrid, as well as there's probably going to be times where a whole classroom shut down, or a school, depending on, you know, what happens when the viruses kind of go up, the outbreaks go up and down. So we know that we need to really keep improving what we do with our distance learning. And then another disadvantage of hybrid is kids just aren't in school as much, so they don't get as much time with their friends and as much time for connection. So the overall recommendation that I am making to you as a board as a result of taking all this information, synthesizing it, brought principals together a couple of times, and they understand and support this recommendation as well. That start the 2021 school year with a hybrid model and continue with this model until the end of first quarter. And some of the advantages of starting the school this year this way is it would really give our teachers and our students an opportunity to adjust to this new environment of having to wear a mask and being physically distanced, and how many kids can we really, now that when we actually put the bodies of the students in there, can we really fit with the 6-foot distancing? It will also give us a chance to see how many students actually show up at the building, because we don't know at this point how many families would choose the virtual academy, the online program. And certainly it allows for some potential changes in requirements of the CDC. Sometimes I'm hearing that there's a possibility, and maybe Dr. Larson can speak to this here in a minute, maybe a possibility of going from 6 feet to 3 feet. It's not anything official yet. I know that there's some countries that went to that. So it'll just be interesting to see what the landscape looks like, even mid-semester or mid-September and toward the end of September. And then we'd like to, if we get the green light from Dr. Larson, and what I would do is we'd go through, do measurements, and present to him a plan and say, if it's still 6 foot, here's what we could do. Here's where they're not quite 6 feet. They'd be more like 4 feet or whatever. And we would need to get a green light from him, and okay from him to say, yes, it looks like you've done everything you can around physical distancing. You've got your routines down with masking and the physical distancing within the building. So yes, you have the green light to go ahead and bring all your students back. So we would be cautious and careful to make sure that we're, to the best of our ability, doing what we can do to keep our students and staff safe, and get Dr. Larson to weigh in on that. Again, by waiting to second quarter, students have had opportunities to practice the procedures like masking during the previous hybrid time. And with the advantage is really more continuity with instruction, as well as peer and social interactions. And our online learning will never replace teachers. I think teachers are really important, and that connection piece. When I had a chance to be a part of the Bulldog Parade and wave to families and see teachers, it was just so clear about just how important that teacher to student connection is. And certainly going every day, it will make that easier. And really that's the expertise of our teachers, is to be with their students on a daily basis. And then certainly, and we'd have to make sure that this would work out with transportation, and it may or may not, but we'd work on it. It may be that when we get to the end of first quarter and we measure things, and if it's still 6 foot, or if things go the other way with the virus and for whatever reason it's worse, there may be some schools like Morgan, for example, and maybe an elementary school that might have like a smaller lunchroom or smaller classrooms that might need to stay on hybrid, and maybe we'd be able to take a differentiated approach at the end of that first quarter. But again, we'd be consulting very closely with Dr. Larson on that to make those kinds of decisions. And again, virtual academy, any family can choose this. What we would like though is for families that choose the online program to stay with it for the first semester. And of course, we take it by case basis. If there was something that was just, not working that we need to consider, but otherwise having a commitment for the semester is important, especially for the student and their continuity of their learning. It'd be pretty hard, especially at the high school level, to go out after 6 weeks, and now they're trying to catch up with everything that happened in class. And even though we're teaching to the same standards, it's still going to be more difficult, I think, for the learner to be able to do that. And again, students who have individual IEPs, they could attend daily depending on the IEP team decisions. And we're also going to be working with families to make sure that they are receiving those in-person therapies like teletherapy where appropriate. And even yesterday, in speaking with an elementary teacher, she had a great question. She says, well, can we have a group C? Like, could we even look at maybe bringing in maybe some of our English language learners or other students that are behind to be able to give them that support? I'll also say we are going to be starting a little bit early this year with some of our special education students, and within both of starting with the hybrid as well as going to all school, we're going to be really intentional in looking at the data. Who are the students that struggled last year and or maybe went off the radar for whatever reason, and we'll be really intentional in reaching out and putting supports in place for them right away. And if that means maybe they come more than twice during the week to get caught up, we're definitely willing to look at that so that all of our students progress the way they need to next year. So before I go to questions, I would like to invite Dr. Larson to just share out any insights you have about this recommendation, or just in general things that you would want to share.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Mark Larson. I'm the county health officer. And normally my job here at the county is 12 hours a week, and I work full-time for Kittitas Valley Hospital. But since March 6th, I've been working full-time on the county's COVID response. Things have changed a lot over the time frame that we have been doing this. Nobody's going to like my answer to lots of questions that are asked, because everybody wants something definitive, and the stock answer should be, it depends. And that probably applies to almost every question that can be answered or can be asked in regards to COVID-19, because we don't really know what direction this is all going to go. So I'll touch base about where we're at currently and where I would see that we're going, and then I'll just touch base on the plan itself. So we, as of this week, went into phase 3 of the governor's opening plan for Washington. There is no definitive time frame for going into phase 4, despite my pushing hard on the governor's office almost daily in regards to getting phase 4 guidance. People think that it's 3 weeks is the time frame, which it's at least 3 weeks, but there's a whole bunch more metrics that have to be involved in making that decision, and none of us really know at this point what those metrics should be. So there's currently no metrics for moving forward, and my evaluation of this would say that it would be unlikely for us to be in phase 4 before school starts. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do spend about 15 hours a day working on COVID-19. So I can kind of see where we're going. Part of the reason that those metrics aren't there is that the communities around us are on fire. Not literally on fire, although we expect in the next couple weeks to start having wildfire season start, which will complicate this whole thing. But Yakima has a significant issue. Grant County has a significant issue. Chelan Douglas has a significant issue. And obviously King County has a significant issue. So we have to be very cautious in regards to making recommendations to move forward when those counties surrounding us are having a significant problem, and those counties affect us. We have lots of people that live in Kittitas County but work in Yakima, and vice versa. We have folks that that live in the upper county and work in Cle Elum or work in Seattle. So people move back and forth. We realize that has an effect on us. We've been very fortunate here. But just so you know that even before we loosened up and went into phase 3, which was just this week, people are starting to relax. People are starting to get out more. Our initial cases in Kittitas County, for the most part, were related to an outbreak at Twin City Foods. And we currently have 2 large outbreaks, one involving about 200 people that had a big party up at Salmon Lasac, and another large party for a middle-aged person's birthday. So we know we're going to see disease as we get people out, and that's one of the concerns about going forward with school. I probably spend about a half of the amount of time that I work here at the health department trying to help school districts figure out how to open both K through 12 schools and also Central Washington University. We can be, as a local public health agency, we can be stricter than the governor or OSPI, but we cannot be less strict than the governor or OSPI. So we have some control over things here, and we can try to impact policies and procedures on a statewide level. And we do have some things in place that are a little stricter than the governor's, but mostly we're following the state guidelines. Most of us in public health, health officers, epidemiologists, and administrators, directors, things will change dramatically between now and when school starts. Hopefully for the better. That's my hope. Hopefully for the better. But OSPI had to come out with some guidance. Otherwise, we can't wait until the end of August to try to plan something for starting in September. So just today, guidance came out from the governor for post K through 12 education. I've not had a chance to read that yet. It came out in the last 30 minutes. But things will change. And I'm hopeful that things are going to change a lot between now and September for the better. In regards to masking, I've been harping on masking for a long time. And if you talk to Alex Bresney, who's the health officer in Grant County, he's been pushing masking for a lot longer than that. It's one of the few tools that we have. There's no real downside to masking from a health standpoint. I do have some downsides about masking, but we know that masking protects others from us. So as a community measure, it really shows that we're looking out for somebody else. So masking is in, I had a masking directive. So I had initially just been asking people to wear masks. And then I had a masking directive, which is just a stronger ask. And that came out in the middle of May, modeled after King County and Spokane County. And that allowed kids under 12 to only be wearing masks when they were with their parents, because we didn't really feel like kids that were running loose were really going to do a good job with masking. But there's currently masking guidelines, both in the OSPI document as well as in the governor's masking directive for the whole state, which goes into place on Friday. Masking will be mandatory, except for those few people that have a medical exception to wearing masking. For all indoor activities and for outdoor activities that we can maintain 6 foot social distancing. So that goes back to what Ginger was saying about the more education we can do outside, the more those kids aren't going to have to wear masks. So that's going to be a good thing. In regards to social distancing, I do feel that The data is going to show that we can probably decrease that some from 6 feet maybe down to 3 feet. There's been some really good work done in the Northern European countries in regards to singing and looking at spread of droplets. And there's probably not a whole lot of difference between 6 feet and 3 feet. But if you're watching the literature in regards to COVID-19, you read one document one day and then the next day it says something totally different. But I think that's going to change. I think the hybrid model makes sense to me. As most of you know, my children went through the whole Ellensburg school district from K through 12. My son was one of those seniors this year that missed out on a lot. So I know this has been difficult for everyone. It's going to get better. I think the hybrid model makes sense. There's no real downside from an infection standpoint. Overnight cleaning does just as good of a job as kind of trying to keep those group A kids in one group and then spreading them out to the group B kids. But the more we are out, the more people we're around, the more disease we're going to see. That's my expectation. And my expectation in the fall is that a big part of us being successful in regards to allowing school to happen in the fall is going to really fall on parents buying into the whole process and taking some ownership. We will have to keep our kids home when they're sick. We will have to help them to socialize, not hugging their friends at school, at least until we get through this initial fall and maybe spring. I am hopeful we will have a vaccine in February, but vaccine science is very difficult, and whether it actually happens in the spring or not, I'm not willing to put any money down on, but I think it's hopeful. We will see disease outbreaks in the schools, and my hopes in working with mostly the school nurses, but also with teachers, is that we can keep those number of exposures of kids down to a minimum. And so the least number of kids that were affected by a disease outbreak would allow us to keep school open. Obviously, if we have 100 kids that are positive at one school, then we're going to have to rethink that. But mostly it's going to be solving problems on the fly. And as much as I'd like to get back to practicing medicine in the family medicine clinic, I think that's unlikely for me in the foreseeable future. I do think we're gonna have disease. I see it now as people are getting out and about. One blessing we've had with this, except for those few kids that have gotten a serious inflammatory disease with COVID-19, kids have been blessed and have not really gotten bad disease, but they are transmitters. One of the things as we look forward is seeing how much they really transmit. And we're not really going to know that until we allow schools to open and get kids back out and about. But I am supportive of this. I'm working closely with Ginger as well as the other school superintendents in the county, with the athletic directors, trying to figure out how we can safely do athletics in the fall. And I am super impressed with the work that I've seen. I was on one of these work group calls with parents and teachers and students, both down here and also in Cleveland and Roslyn. And I am really impressed at our community at how hard people are working. End of report.
Okay. So board members, what questions do you have? Either for me or for Dr. Larson?
So Dr. Larson, just to be very, very clear, because I know what some of our parents have said, If we were to say we wanted to open without masks, you would say absolutely no, correct? We have to, that's not an option on the table for us.
It's not an option. It's not an option for me, but more importantly, it's not an option. I despite what people think, I am not the controller of what happens here. So that's a governor's guideline. That's also OSPI guidelines. And to be totally honest, I think it is my guideline as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we opened without masks, we would have within a couple weeks, we would have thousands of people with disease. Fortunately, it might be mild disease, but yeah, that's not an option. That's not on the table.
And that just has to be clear, because sometimes we have things we would like that aren't on the table. My other question is, I definitely get the desire and the proposal for gingers. I think we'll have a good conversation about that. But parents had indicated in these surveys that there was a definite preference to opening full-time. Do you think I'm not saying we're going to do that, but if we were to choose that option, how viable would it be to actually be able to maintain those requirements at the beginning of the school year? I mean, do you think that that's an option that's realistically on the table but difficult and has issues that we want to evaluate, or one that would be problematic to implement at all?
I think the social distancing would be very difficult. That's probably the main thing. The two things that we have currently are social distancing and masking. Those are the tools that we have to keep people from getting sick. And it's not that I really want kids to get sick, but I really don't want their parents and their grandparents to get sick. And that's what's going to happen. And so when we currently, well, let me take a step back. When we had Twin City Foods outbreak, we had about 2 contacts per each person that was positive. Now that people are out and about, we're getting 8 to 10 contacts per each person that's positive. And so if we have one student who's positive, then we have 8 to 10 people that are in quarantine for 14 days. And if we put all of those kids back all at once and we're not maintaining social distancing and masking, then we've got so many kids and parents and teachers that are out that I think the system is going to be difficult. It's not impossible, but I think just due to the social distance, we can do the masking piece despite none of us really wanting to do it, even though we want to protect others. It's difficult to do the social distancing at 6 feet, and I don't think that requirement's going to change before the fall.
So if I'm hearing you right, if we came back in a more full thing, we would increase the odds of having a large spread, in which case we might then be forced to go into something more truly virtual. So we wouldn't depending on what the impact, if we couldn't maintain the conditions with everybody back, we might end up with less rather than more time in classrooms.
Correct. I do see, though, that problems with the hybrid model. I would have a very difficult time if I had young children in school, since I work full-time and my wife works full-time. It would be a burden on us as a family.
Dan?
Yeah, one of the things that we were told earlier was wash your hands, and that soap actually kills the virus. Is that still one of the mechanisms that we should be using?
Yeah, washing your hands is definitely definitely in the arsenal that we have, and washing your hands is better than using hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is an option for those people that can't wash their hands, but that's another thing that we're going to have to work on, socializing, encouraging people to wash hands.
So those 3 things basically, yeah, I think it's important to note that wearing the face mask doesn't protect the person wearing the mask. It protects everyone around them, right?
That is correct. The mask protects others from me, it does have some effect at protecting me from others, but that's, if you go into the hospital, they're wearing a higher level mask. That's for protection of me from others, of patients mostly with COVID-19. We are going to end up in some situations where we have to make some compromise. So, and that was my concern about masking, is that in the younger age range, you might end up having a first grade teacher that says, I cannot teach these kids without them being able to see my mouth move. And that teacher might end up wearing a face shield. The face shield actually protects the teacher from the child, but not necessarily the child from the teacher. So it's a, you would not ever have a child wearing a face mask. Well, you might have it at some points, but the difficulty with that is that the child most likely doesn't understand the whole social distancing and not coughing on others and those type of things. So I think we'll see some face shields worn by teachers, and I think one of those things that'll change, and it's already changed in the document from the governor on for churches. They did recommend everyone older than 2 to wear a mask in church, but then it came out with a little caveat, which was as tolerated. So there are going to be difficulties with the really young kids and masking.
Yeah, I know too that we have some teachers that are in the at-risk groups, and some other staff positions are filled by older folks, and maybe this is a ask for Ginger, do we have mechanisms whereby they can still, maybe they'd be more on the virtual side or something like that? Or are there ways that they can be protected?
Yes, we're looking at all that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Meg? Or Jen, did you have more questions? Sorry. Okay, I saw Meg next.
Dr. Larson, maybe you answered this, but you're saying that, because my question was about face shields versus masks. According to the governor's guidance, face shields are allowed as well as masks. But could you clarify a bit more about how, if it protects the teacher from the child, why does the child not wearing a face mask not protect the child from the teacher and others?
Well, it would still protect the child from the teacher, but a face mask allows, or a shield allows me to cough and sneeze, and those droplets still come out from underneath. So the child would not necessarily be protecting anyone else. It may end up being a case by case basis, but face shields for the most part, kind of like when you go into the grocery store and you see the plexiglass shields, that's really to protect the person at the counter from us. It does work a little bit the other way. The masks really work at protecting others from us. So putting a mask on a child protects the child's other kids in that class from the child, but putting a face shield on doesn't work quite as well as that. So they're different tools. Going back to Dan's question, you might find somebody who's at risk who chooses to wear a face shield to protect themselves, and they might also choose to wear a higher level mask like a N95 like we see in healthcare to also protect themselves. That would also protect others, but I can tell you they're much more uncomfortable to wear for a whole day.
Oh, that's not what I've heard. I also have a question for Ginger. It didn't, in the presentation, it kind of implied that there would be extracurricular activities under Model 2 or 3, but not 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, in Model 1, because that's just like what we have now. Absolutely, Model 1 would have extracurricular as well.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Meg, did you have any further questions?
No, that's it. Thanks. Oh, well, I do have a question about quarters versus semesters, but is it that the high school's on semesters and the others are on? Okay. Thank you.
Jason, did you have questions? I saw you got mute.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Larson. I think where my concern is, and I definitely want to be a voice for, is our low-income families, our single-parent families, where this, if we are moving, if since the hybrid's being strongly or being recommended, how are daycares different? I think part of I think I've had parents talk to me about if they're sending kids to school some days and then they're going to daycares other days, aren't they getting more exposure with different students at different times? Can you speak to daycares and schools and the interchanging of both versus why aren't we just sending them all back to the schools?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And in a lot of this situation with COVID-19, there's lots of inconsistencies. So the reason our numbers were so low in Kittitas County, there's a variety of reasons, but the main reason is that we all stayed at home in comparison to Yakima, where they had a lot more essential workers out working. And the people that we had with the disease here were the people that were out working. So if you extrapolate that and look at education, the kids that would choose to stay at home and do online school would be less exposed to others, so they would be less likely to have disease. The folks that choose to, or that need to have their kids in daycare, and I spent an hour today talking to the developmental daycare folks, they're gonna have the same, they're gonna have more exposure because they're gonna get exposed to a group of people in first grade at Lincoln, and then they're gonna go to a preschool and get exposed to a different set of kids. Their risk is gonna be higher, for sure. If you could fit the 6-foot social, I mean, again, that gets back to the problem with having all the kids come back, in my perspective, is fitting the 6-foot distance in place. But you're right. The more you get out and about, the more exposure you're going to have, and we have seen that. We saw that in our Twin City Foods folks too. So it's not a perfect solution. They have their same things with distancing that they're going to have to do, the masking that they're going to have to do, and it's going to be different.
Jason, did you have any other questions?
Can I do a follow-up question to Ginger? So Ginger, I was wondering, so I know if we're looking at the hybrid, I know the kind of the challenges that you shared in your slide was really the working parents, childcare, also streamlining and improving distance learning. So I know that we had I know that you all really, and the teachers really had no prep time to move into what happened this past spring. But how can we reassure, if we're going to go with the hybrid model at the beginning of the year, how will the district support our parents and our families through that beginning, so that it's not the same? And I know you talked a little bit about reaching out to additional students, especially those that maybe were not successful spring quarter, like did not complete spring quarter, or really struggled with connecting online. I mean, I think, so yeah, I'm just wondering, like, and I know you can't possibly have all those answers, but I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to how you anticipate moving forward to really address that concern for fall.
Well, I appreciate that, Jason. By looking at an online platform that's has a lot of research behind it, we've had experts in distance learning put together a curriculum with videos as well as lessons that go with it. by having a product like that, a program like that as kind of the backbone of the online learning, what we would see would be doing some training with teachers at the beginning of the year, and then maybe ask them to use it once or twice during the week, so that if a teacher was still, and our teachers are very different across the spectrum, right? We have some teachers that just slid right into the distance learning and it was like a fish in water. They were used to it, they went with it. And then we had other teachers that, you know, they had never done or had little experience with that, and they put their whole hearts into it, but it wasn't, you know, it takes a while sometimes to completely adapt, especially if you've been doing teaching in a certain way for 10 or more years. And so, and actually, you know, that's not even true. Some experienced teachers went straight in and did great. So it's just, there's real variability as far as teachers and how successful they felt with the distance learning. So by I think by getting this program as a backbone and training and getting teachers to use it during the hybrid period, not only will it help have a more coherent, I think, curriculum available for students when they're home for 3 days, but it will also be there if we have a shutdown for a week or two and everybody has to stay home, or we have a whole group of students that has to be quarantined for 14 days. We've got this curriculum that's ready to go, and it's actually overall, I think, will decrease workload for teachers, because then the kids could be using that while they're, and the other beauty of this program is it's not an either or. Teachers can look at it because it's aligned with standards, and they could choose to do their own lesson. But, you know, if I'm doing something on the solar system, I'm going to do this one activity that I really like, but I noticed that the program has some great video to go with it, and I really like how they organize this lesson, so I'm going to include this part in there as well. It just gives a resource, and we're looking for one hopefully that would be K-12, so it's something that would be add coherence to the curriculum across all grade levels, especially in our, you know, in the core subjects, and just allow us to, I think, just experience overall more success with the distance learning. And to your point with parents, I think we'll need to, in a hybrid model, and even when we look at the fact that there's going to be times where we're going to probably have to shut down whole classrooms, whole schools, hopefully not, but it's a possibility. Parents are, and we experienced this the last 3 months, we just really appreciate our parents as partners. And I think it'll be really important once we choose something to do a lot of parent education around that, and have several opportunities for parents to either access the videos and put those out, which we did some of this year, but also have maybe some Zoom sessions where parents can come in, they can try it on. But I think a learning that we took away, I think, as a system from this last experience is really, we just need to double up our efforts, I think, in giving parents support and understanding the platforms, understanding how to best support their child when they're online.
Jason, did you have any other questions? Is there any other board members that have follow-up questions? I would like to ask a question. It is my understanding, I didn't hear it in the presentation, and if someone can give me clarification, it would be helpful. When we're thinking of classes like gym or band or choir, I'm sure there's others that aren't coming to mind right now. Are there special considerations as to how those classes look?
Larson, you want to weigh in on that?
I'm willing to bite on that one. Yes. So a month ago, I said there is no way band or choir was going to happen. I couldn't figure out how to make that actually happen. And I've become more, and I'm a band and a choir parent, right? So I buy into that part of education. Band is going to be less problematic than choir. So this, to Miss Bandy's probably chagrin, I would have initially put everybody doing percussion a month ago. And now I've said, you know, all the band people are going to be able to play. Certainly marching band outside it would be my choice, but obviously we're not going to be marching in the winter. But maintaining that 6-foot social distance, you might have to, the Army band, who obviously has a lot more money than most of us have, put some plexiglass between each one of their players, and they were playing with the whole band. So there's ways to make band work. Choir is a little more problematic. Well, let me go back to band. I've not seen any data of any disease outbreaks having to do with band. So, so that's reassuring. You know, there might have to be some work with social distancing or smaller classes or those type of things. Choir, on the other hand, we have had quite a few outbreaks from choir, but I think it too can work. Initially, I would have said choir needs to be all solos, but we might be able to use the little theater at the high school and spread kids out and have a few kids on the stage at once. But there's a really good study out of Norway that looked at a boys choir, and that's where the 6 feet, 3 feet comes from, is that it didn't appear that there was much more transmission having those kids sing at 3 feet than 6 feet. So I think things will change. In regards to PE and gym, outdoor is better than indoor. There's more airflow and those type of things. There will be some, and a lot of this is going to depend upon how much disease we have here. You know, if we were in Yakima talking about this, we'd be having a whole different discussion currently, but our prevalence of disease is very low. So we might try, let's say we decided to try basketball for a PE class, and then all of a sudden we have an outbreak of disease that occurs in relationship to basketball. Well, then we're going to say, well, that wasn't a very good idea. Let's take basketball away and try something else. So that's how I would, which is really why I will not be going back to practicing medicine for a while, because I'm going to have to be solving problems like this on the fly as we move forward. And Ginger had mentioned closing schools. That is the last thing that I want to do. So I really would rather spot fix this thing, you know, and I think that can be done as long as the students buy into their piece of responsibility for this. So I think we'll have some opportunity to see how it works as the athletic directors are pushing to have practices this summer. And I think if we can make athletic practices work without much spread of disease, it's going to give a lot more flexibility to us in a regular classroom.
Thank you for being willing to answer that question. And for sharing your thought process, which you do every day on YouTube, and I am so thankful for that. It is a complex issue, and there isn't a right answer, and that's what I keep hearing. There is to be informed and to be best intentioned. So I thank you for your leadership and for coming to speak with us and to take these questions, and for answering that last one. Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Ginger, is there anything that you would like to add? Meg, I saw you went off mute. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Dr. Larson, you just mentioned summer practices. Have we decided if those, maybe this is a question for Ginger, have we decided whether those are going to be allowed?
I'm meeting with Cole tomorrow, and we're going to go over it. I just have to make sure that the plans, what I need is Dr. Larson's for our risk insurance. They just need to know that Dr. Larson's looked at the plans and that, you know, he's in one way or another gives us the green light to be able to do it. And so, but we need to look at them together first, and Cole and I are doing that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Anything else, Meg?
Nope.
Okay. We recognize that we are joined by many people who probably have a lot to say. At this point, would like to do public comment. So we are moving public comment up to this. Matt, did you want to say something? I saw you come off mute.
No, continue. Just getting things ready.
Okay, thank you. So in regards to that, we will be holding public comment to this agenda item only, and then you will have the ability to public comment later on in the agenda also. In recognition that there are so many people here, if we do get many people repeating the same sentiment or the same opinion, at that point, we will give a chance for you to raise your hand, and so that will be recorded as to everyone's responses, so that we are not here for an unlimited amount of time hearing the same opinion. In order to save everyone time, that is how we will handle that. As Matt is getting things ready, I do need to read the public comment guidelines. Individuals wishing to be heard by the board will first be recognized by the chair, president. Individuals will be recognized within Zoom by using the icon to show they are raising their hand. If you do not know where that is, you can look on the bottom of your screen. It says reactions. There's a little smiley face. That is where you can find the ability to raise your hand. Individuals, after identifying themselves, stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. In order to provide equal opportunity for comments, an individual's microphone will be turned off at the 3-minute time limit. The chair president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole has the final decision in determining the appropriateness of all such rulings. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act 4230, agendas and topic must be set in advance of the meeting. Board members will not respond to public comment during the meeting. Additionally, comments can be submitted to the board at our email address, board@esd401.org. That has also been put in the chat box by Matt. If you submit if you submit an email to that address, it goes to all of the board members and it is submitted into public comment. Matt, are you ready for this?
Yes, so if you want to watch the mic, I'll be running the timer. A timer will show up on the screen after a person introduces themselves. It'll run for 3 minutes, counting down. At that point, mic will be turned off.
All right, thank you, Matt. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment to the board? I'm scanning through all 4 pages trying to see if there's any hands raised.
Ashley Krinkovich raised her hand.
Ashley, I'm going to try to find you. Matt, if you
I'm not sure if we're allowed to, are we allowed right now to address questions to Dr. Larson?
I did not seek that clarity. Dr. Larson and Ginger, yes? I can't speak for them.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. We can do that, just the board can't. So I'm fine with that.
As point of clarification, they'll be responded to after the public comment.
Right. We'll write your question down and then we'll keep track of it and go through it.
Okay, and this could be for you guys as well. I'm not sure who would decide on this. I'm just wondering, as far as the face masks go during the school year, some children will be exempt from it due to special needs or medical reasons. That's correct?
Ashley, we can't respond in the middle of public comment, but we can write your question.
So my question is, who makes that determination as far as the medical needs?
Okay, we'll write down that question. And Ashley, can you also state your name and your address for public record?
Yeah, Ashley Krinkovich, 902 West 3rd Avenue, Ellensburg.
Thank you. Did you have further questions?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make a public comment?
There are 3 participants that have their hands raised.
Matt, I'm not seeing those, so can oh, here I do. I apologize. I see Gayla Blaisdell. I'm gonna take you off mute if I can.
Oh, yeah. Hi, it's actually Tor Blaisdell. She's just letting me use the nice computer. So, my question's for Dr. Larson, and it's just in terms of being an advocate for all the very hard work that Ginger and the school district are doing, and in terms of getting parents to buy into the overall program, could you just, in like a few words, help us understand? What I'm hearing a lot of in the community is this is just another form of flu. People are blowing this way out of proportion. So I think that would be an important thing I would like to hear from you in terms of being able to go to other parents and get their buy-in on this issue.
Thank you. And Tora, can we have you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, Tor Blaisdell, 811 South Magnolia Street.
Thank you. Deetra, I also don't see your name up here, but.
Hi, Deetra Underhill, 604 South Chestnut Street, Ellensburg. My question is, in the hybrid model, it appears that students would be separated into Group A and Group B, and that Group A would attend school on Monday and Thursday, and Group B would attend on Tuesday and Friday, and then Wednesdays would be sort of all children at home with the exception of, special needs, IEP, etc. I was wondering if you could speak to why it would be separated in a Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday separation rather than having Group A attend Monday, Tuesday, and Group B attend Thursday, Friday.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Adrian?
Hi, Adrian Zimney, 707 South Matthews Road, Ellensburg. I just wanted to strongly encourage that we continue to explore the consideration of choir. I know that there have been a lot of outbreak information about happening in choirs. We saw the one on the west side in the church at the beginning. And so but I think we know more now, and I think I love Dr. Larson's idea of putting them up in the little theater and spreading out, if at all possible. And so anyway, I would like to be a part of that continued conversation and hope that we can come to a good solution before we hit September. That's all I had to say.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment to the board? Andrea Coulson. I'm trying to find where Andrea is in this list.
I have unmuted her, so she's ready to go.
Okay, so again, my name is Andrea Coulson, 2303 North Creek's Edge Way. My question, and maybe I just need reassurance, my son's going into middle school and he's never been put on an IEP before, but he's always had to take all of the title programs at the elementary school. And me and my husband both work full-time. I work full-time in the medical field. And so I wanted to ask the question that would 5 days a week be an option for him, even though he doesn't have an IEP title? So that would be my question.
Thank you for your response. The next person that I see is Jaden Burrows.
I think maybe they answered it afterwards. So.
Matt, can you help with the mute and the unmute?
Yep.
Thank you.
And that is correct. Questions will be responded to after public comment.
Jaden Burrows is recognized next.
Jaden Burrows, 2310 North Creeksedge Way. During the presentation, there was a completely online option that Mrs. Haberer was talking about, and the wording of it was just a bit confusing on whether there was already a vetted online option or if there was still research going into it. And I just wanted more clarification on what that option would look like. And as a follow-up to that question, she also mentioned something about a training for teachers in the fall, and I personally don't understand how training at the start of school would prepare teachers for that online option to best serve students.
Thank you for your response.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment to the board?
We have Joseph Chang.
Thank you, Matt. The board recognizes Joseph Chang.
Joseph Chang, 317 West Indiana Drive. I just wanted to thank the school board, the school district, and Dr. Larson for selecting the safest model that's rooted in science. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your response. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Jamie Rosen, I see a hand raised, I believe.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Jamie Rosen, 50 Willowbrook Lane, Ellensburg. First, I just really want to say thank you for the proactive, thorough approach that the board and the superintendent have taken so that parents can kind of start getting our head wrapped around what fall might look like, but fully aware that it could all change. I do have some questions around the virtual model. One, I believe Jaden asked already, was which providers are under consideration at this point in time, or if a decision has been made. Also, when will a decision be made, and when will a commitment be needed from parents? And is it fair to assume that you will be committed to providing that for the entirety of the school year, regardless of what happens with COVID? And also, I, again, just want to double check that this would include all the way down to kindergarten, that the virtual model would be open fully through K through 12. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your response. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Matt, can you double check for me? I'm not seeing anybody else raising a hand or a reaction.
I'm not seeing anyone else raise their hand.
All right, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Matt, did you?
We did Ashley Krankovich already, correct?
Yes.
Then I'm not seeing any other hands of those who wish to speak.
Okay, at this point then, we are going to close public comments for this agenda item. Thank you for those who made those comments, and I will turn this over to Ginger and Dr. Larson.
All right. So the first question that we had was from Ashley about face masks, and the question I think was about who makes the determination of whether or not a student is exempt from wearing a mask, and she used the example of a special needs student. Dr. Larson, do you want to address that? And then I'd be glad to touch base with that as well.
Yeah, there's at least currently that there is not a form that has to be filled out. There's not a doctor's note that needs to be obtained. You know, what we are hoping is that it's a minimal number of people that really truly have a medical reason to not wear a mask. And so it really falls to the parents' responsibility for doing that. We have situations currently that people can't wear a mask and nobody in public, and nobody's asking those folks. We need about 80% of people to wear masks to really bend the needle here. So that's my take on that. It may change over time, but that's what I understand currently.
I think from a school district point of view, we'd take each case individually and work with families and see if we couldn't resolve and create a situation where that student could be successful. So second question is was from Gayla or from Tor, and there's this saying that this COVID is just like another form of the flu. Dr. Larson, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I had this discussion at the Kittitas School Board. I mean, it kind of depends on how you want to look at statistics. And, you know, if you look at just the numbers of cases in Kittitas County versus the population in Kittitas County, it's a very low percentage of people that are getting sick. This morning, people are dying. We had 121,232 deaths in the United States. There's probably some difficulty with actually that statistic as well, but we know that it's affecting elderly people more than younger people. That said, the disease in Yakima, we've had 40-year-olds die, we've had 30-year-olds die, and the morbidity of the disease takes those people out of even if they recover from COVID-19, a serious COVID-19 that puts them in the hospital, those people are sick for months and months and months. So no one has immunity to this disease, and thus the reason it's such a problem. And it's not so the mortality is higher than the flu, the morbidity is higher than the flu, and we're still going to have the flu in the fall. So if we end up with 200,000 deaths by the time flu season rolls around, then we're going to have another 80,000 deaths in the United States with influenza. So it's a cumulative amount. I find it difficult for people that choose to believe that it's just another flu. It is difficult to convince them otherwise, but I usually point to each one of those deaths being somebody that we know and care about. And we've only had one death in Kittitas County, happened to be a person who had been living at a long-term care facility on the west side, but still affected us. So more deadly and more people getting sick, and a mixture with influenza on top of that.
Thank you. The next question was about the hybrid model. Why are we doing A on Monday, B on Tuesday, having Wednesday as a teacher work and planning day, and then A on Thursday and B on Friday? And in looking at it from an instructional lens and speaking with teachers, administrators, felt like if students had a lesson in person on a Monday or Tuesday, it would give teachers an opportunity on Wednesday to evaluate that assignment and, you know, possibly give students feedback on it, and then be able to possibly better continue that learning by having them then back in class after they have that chance to do planning and give students feedback and look at the quality of the student work. And then it was also some parent feedback that I received around, please don't make my child have 5 days off in a row where they are just doing online and they don't have contact with their family or with their friends and with their teachers. So that's a model we're going with for right now. Around choir, yes, we are working with Michelle and Bo at the middle school and the high school and looking at, could we use Morgan Middle School auditorium? Dr. Larson, I've talked about, well, if we could have kids sing, if they're 6 feet apart and they're spaced out on the stage, and you have kids in their seats 12 feet back in the auditorium, kids could potentially, you know, sing on the stage in those kind of conditions. And so certainly Michelle, for example, is already making plans, Michelle Bibbich, the principal at Morgan, to have the choir and band practice in the auditorium, just so that we have a bigger space, more air circulation, and opportunities to do 6-foot spacing, but especially for choir, only have a few kids sing at a time and have the other kids sit far enough back that it's there's not as big a concern around spread.
And I plan on continuing to look at the science in regards to that, in regards to choir. I think if we can make sports work, we can make choir work, and I'm committed to figuring out how to do both of those things.
Awesome. Andrea, about the middle school, you know, what's the programming going through full time? And so, yes, any kind of any kind of a extracurricular program, when we go 5 days a week, it would be the same. You asked specifically, though, about a child who is in a title program, and I think right now we would just have to kind of wait and see how many students are actually there. Even on a hybrid, we're going to be pretty full in our classrooms at Morgan. But certainly once we see, you know, how things are, how many kids there are and where kids are placed, definitely then that next step would be to say, okay, who are the students that are receiving title services or English language learners or students who are struggling and just need that extra support, especially a small group instruction support, and how can we fold them in more often throughout the week. Jaden asked about online training for teachers, and this also Jamie asked about online as well. So what we have right now is we've been researching some different products. We did some surveys with teachers while they were still here to kind of get a feel for what was important to them in an online program. And now, in order to be able to spend the federal funds, we have to do a full-blown process. It's an RFP process and refer for purchase. And that is a little bit more involved process, but because it's federal funds, we're required to do that. And so we just, Kelly Kronbauer is the running point on that. He's done an excellent job putting together an RFP. We're just now putting that out. The deadline for that RFP to come back so what happens is we basically put out guidelines to all of the vendors that are out there for online programs and say, here's everything that we need in a program. Send us some examples of what you could do. How could you meet our needs? And they basically apply to be considered. And that process ends July 13th because we have to give it a 2-week time period. And then we'll use the feedback that we already got from teachers, possibly bring a smaller group of people together again to look at it. Kelly has another group he's bringing together that includes parents as part of like that adoption process. And it's a little harder in the middle of July to be able to do that. But we will do our best to bring people together after the 13th. So no, we don't have an exact name of a product because we have to go through this full RFP process. And yes, we would be using this product for the entire year. If all students go back, we'd keep this online program for the entire year. So there'll be a dual pathway throughout the entire year. And training for teachers, I know it's tight. We are going to see if we can do some training before. We're also looking at the possibility, depending on how quickly we can process things, once we get the RFP process is done and we actually are able to select a company, and then we'll need to bring it to the board for the 22nd board meeting to formally adopt it. And then we can start looking at, you know, possibly getting examples and website links out to teachers who may want to look at it early. They don't have to, but we'd want to be able to give them the option if they decided they wanted to do that. And then we're also we'll have to do some more planning around what would that training look like. We would also anticipate that those Wednesday time periods could be used for PD, and it could be a good opportunity even for teachers to be able to look at and help each other use that virtual platform within the professional learning community. So that's another possibility for ongoing training. And I think that was it for questions.
All right, thank you for answering those questions. And thank you to the public who came and made those comments. At this time, board, this is an action item, but it has to be tied to a motion.
So I don't know if we want to discuss first what we all want, or just make a motion and then we can vote on that. But how do you want to do that?
Tasha, can I do a point of clarification real quick?
Yes.
So what's being recommended is, to you right now, is one recommendation of starting the year for the first quarter doing hybrid. And then after that, if we get a green light from Dr. Larson, and maybe there's some changes that allow a little more flexibility with the physical distancing, moving into having all students come back. So that's the overall recommendation that I'm bringing to you as a result of all the feedback and focus groups and everything that we've done as a system. So that's the recommendation that I'm putting on the table for the board.
And so for clarification for board members, we are discussing and potentially voting on this recommendation.
Right.
Not possible alterations or considerations to the recommendation.
So I then would move that we approve the recommendation as specified by Ginger, because I don't know, we can have a discussion if we need one.
There'll be a discussion.
I'll second that.
Jennifer has moved and Dan has seconded. Is there any discussion?
So I will start and say that much as I would like to see students back in school full-time at the beginning of the year, after listening to Dr. Larson and listening to Ginger, I just do not see that as being the most practical solution. I would be very concerned that we bring everybody back at the beginning of the year, almost, run the risk of having an outbreak very quickly, and then we're completely shut down again. I think that our chances of being able to maintain and sustain this hybrid model are much higher than our chances of being able to keep 24 kindergartners in their corners of the room, particularly at the beginning when we're still learning it. So, I personally, I see that the parents did prefer full-time. If I had kids in the district, I would want them to be at school full-time and not driving me insane. But I think that this hybrid model is the best option. I'm glad that we're looking at it for the first quarter, with the hope that we can go to a regular, go back to a more regular model if at all possible after that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Dan, I see that you are off mute.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the work and research that went into this too, and just looking at how many, let's do this here, looking at how many states and communities now are experiencing a real upsurge in the virus because they got together, they got groups of people together. That's a real lesson for us that we can take, learn from. And I think this, by adopting the hybrid method, I think we're doing a good job of keeping that from happening. And no, this is a real community effort, and I think we need to be responsible about the process. As Dr. Larson said, it's not the kids that are going to get sick, it's the parents and the grandparents, and those are the ones we have to worry about. And as a parent myself, my kids went through the school system here also, and I found out very quickly that as soon as they go to school, they bring everything home. So we got all the colds and all the sicknesses that they were experiencing at school. So that would happen for sure if we just all send them all in at the same time. So I appreciate everything that went into this, and we need to continue to be diligent about our hygiene and all of that.
Thank you, Dan. Jason?
Thank you. Yes, I really want to say kudos to Ginger and everyone involved with this. This is a hard decision. It's a tough decision. I appreciate so much, Ginger, that you have tried to reach out to all constituents and get as much input as possible. Not everybody's going to be happy with this decision. It's just the way it is. What I really appreciate about this recommendation is that we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the future will be. And I think what I like about it the best is that you're really trying to factor in, no matter how the fall looks, whether we are back in phase 1 or whether wherever we are, we have a plan, and that is different than anything in the past. I know if I was a parent, I'd still be unsettled. I'd still be probably frustrated. It's not what I would have wanted as a parent, but I think knowing that you have a plan and that you've really thought this through, this would be really good. So I support this recommendation. I think where I'm a little shocked and maybe a little frustrated is what Dr. Larson shared was that there seems to be no, from his perspective, there's nothing regulating or giving any guidance as to what the exceptions will be to face coverings. And so the board, I think we need to really hear that, because if that means the board is going to have to develop a district policy to put in place, we may need to do that, because no matter what, whichever direction that we would go in the future, if we cannot consistently, the whole point of this is the face coverings and the 6 feet distancing. And if we can just make an exception here and there without a doctor's note, and again, I want to be respectful to those that truly cannot, for physical and medical reasons, cannot do face coverings. But I think we all know in our community there are plenty of people that just are not going to want to do face coverings, and that Dr. Larson, I guess I just expected more. So I will look forward to working with you as a board to come up with some real science behind this, that we can move forward in a policy that will protect our children, all of our children in the district. Yeah, sorry, I'm really frustrated about that one, but as you can tell. But anyway, I think on this recommendation, again, Ginger, I cannot thank you enough for how much you have tried to really get the input from our community moving forward. And it's a tough decision, and I sometimes hate sitting in this chair because it's a tough decision, and I know it doesn't make everybody happy, but I think it's the right way to move forward. So thank you.
Jason, Meg?
Well, I think Jason's got a good point there. And I agree with much of what everybody else has said. Basically, I think this model is realistic. I think bringing all our students back at once, we probably can't even fit them all in. And I also think it's flexible. I think it's better to start with a hybrid that you can move in various directions from as conditions dictate, and we certainly don't know what the conditions are going to be. So I'm in favor of this recommendation as well, and I also am very appreciative of the process behind it.
Thank you, Meg. I would like to start by saying that this is inherently an emotional time. It is our community's most precious assets, and it's our family's most precious assets, our kids. And when I was thankful enough to be involved in many of those forums. I am appreciative of all of the work that our district admins have done, and Ginger specifically for putting together a process on this that brought stakeholders' voices to it. It is emotional. And like Dr. Larson has said many times in his work in public health, there's not a yes or no answer. everything changes moment to moment. And he can't be, I'm gonna get this wrong, so Dr. Larson, any less strict in the state, right? There are many things that have been taken out of our hands that are state mandated, right? The masking is one of them. It's not gonna make a lot of people happy. It's going to make people question science, but it is a mandate, and it is not something that we can vote on or change at this board or county level. I am thankful for everyone who has given their comments to this, who have wrestled with this, because this is emotional. We heard you, like the kids especially. I see a lot of those students who are in here who were in those forums. We heard you with your bravery and forthrightness when you said you were not exactly thrilled with what happened in Distance Learning 1.0. We heard many parents repeat the same thing. They were not exactly thrilled what happened in Distance Learning 1.0. They recognize that teachers did their very best, right? This was under a panic situation. But going forward, the admin team and the teachers are working hard on making sure that Distance Learning 2.0 does not look the same as Distance Learning 1.0. But our district is working very hard at making sure that number one, health and wellness is centered, and that number two, education and learning is centered. This plan provides flexibility and choice in there, and it seems to be the safest going forward. So I am thankful and appreciate and will vote for this plan. Any further discussion? Then with a roll call vote, Jason?
Hi.
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Meg?
Is it still going on?
Yeah, and I was trying to, when I
Meg, oh, it's muting.
Aye.
Meg, I think I heard you say aye.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you to everyone for their hard work and their participation. And thank you, Dr. Larson, for coming and presenting to the board. And thank you for all the hard work you do at County Public Health. There is a reason we're in phase 3, and it is County Public Health and our community working hard. Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Ginger, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, just thank you. I really appreciate your leadership and your support for this plan.
Board, that moves us to board reports. We'll start with the bond and construction update. And is Brian is in here, I believe.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Board members, I do not have a bond update for you at this time. I'm looking at our next board meeting, our first board meeting in July. We'll present you board members with a couple of resolutions to keep our state match program, in play, and so expect to see that. So that's really all I have for now. And I do not have a fiscal update either, so I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Brian, can you by any chance tell us anything that's happened at the site that's changed since last time we met? Oh, I think.
Certainly, yeah, I can do that. We do have the building permit for our Mount Stewart replacement school, and work is underway in earnest on that. We also, as a separate project, we are working in conjunction with the city on Cora Street and sewer improvements on that street. Although we do have a foundation permit for the new school on north of the John Wayne Trail, we are still waiting on receipt of the Department of Ecology 401 permit, which we expect hopefully by the end of next week or a little bit sooner. And that is the one last remaining thing that is holding us up from working on the North School. So that's where we are presently.
Thank you for that update. Jason, do you have an update for legislative?
I had no idea. By being legislative rep, there is always so much going on our state level. So again, I think we've just, all these announcements that continue to keep coming, I think we're all staying on top of that. I don't even know what I'd say as far as some of the things that even just the governor spoke about today. So Ginger, is there any highlights that we think we should really touch upon, or do we think we're in the know on this?
I think we're fine. I think we could do probably a more complete one in one of our July meetings for sure. We'll be more happy to do that.
Jason, you definitely got voted onto the committee that is busy. Just like waiting for updates every 15 minutes. And if you wait a half hour, they change their update. They just, flip their guidance around. Thank you for doing that and keeping track. And board members, I think we're all receiving that guidance also in our email. It's definitely made our reading piles taller. Dan, for early learning update?
Yeah, the Early Learning Coalition just yesterday had a book giveaway. They're doing one a month, and they're over at Valley View. In May, they gave books. It's for kids birth through kindergarten. They gave 70 families, a total of 95 kids, books and toys that are educational kinds of toys and things. And yesterday we had 65 families, 85 kids. We've also done, in June, there were 16 home delivery visits for 17 kids. And that's going to happen again in July. So those of you parents who have little ones, watch for that. It should be around July 20th, and it'll be another drive-through thing at Valley View in the parking there. And the other thing that I've been doing, because we can't do the reading in the park this summer, we're not doing the reading in the park. I've been reading books and various things onto a YouTube channel, I guess it is, that's just my name. Once you get to YouTube, you type in my name, and you should get a whole bunch of them come up. They're categorized in for K3, 3, 6 to 9, and 9 to 12, and adult, and there's a thing in there from basically first words books all the way up to the Constitution. So right now there's, I believe, over 100 books and speeches and all kinds of things. And I've got another stack of, I don't know, 20 more to work on. And Mr. Bicchieri just gave me a whole load of things to try to work on too. So there'll be some history and things like that in there. Anyway, it's not, you don't have to belong to, I mean, there's not a subscription thing or anything like that. It's just on YouTube. So just type in my name there and you'll find it.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
To our, I'm gonna have to get used to this, our new student board reps, who, Jaden and Olivia, we'll have to meet and talk about how you would like to deal with student reports, but is there anything that you would like to say during the report?
Okay. I don't think so. I don't know if Jaden wants to speak on this, but yeah.
Thank you, Olivia.
The only thing that I can think to say is that thank you to everyone putting in so much work and effort to get things running as smoothly as it possibly can, with such challenges coming up so often. And I'm looking forward to potentially offering more as we move forward.
Thank you, Jaden. We are very much looking forward to hearing your voice and amplifying your interests. So thank you. And I am not going to do report for teaching and learning, but I am going to turn the floor over to Jennifer Hackett.
Thank you, Tasha. So just want to read a statement. The next few years will be very challenging for the Ellensburg School District as we strive to provide the best possible education for all our students while dealing with the reality of a global pandemic and a significant budget shortfall. At the start of this year, we knew we were facing a short-term financial challenge as we waited for our revenue to catch up to the contracts and other obligations that we'd agreed to. However, we had every reason to believe the cuts would be limited in extent and duration. We expected the legislature would at least partially address impacts from the funding formulas that came out of the McCleary settlement, including more adequate funding for experienced teachers, mental health, and special education. We also had every reason to anticipate rising property values and enrollment. We can no longer count on those positive changes. These twin factors, the need to change how we teach and the need to cut what we spend, are going to force some difficult decisions that will require careful consideration and input from the board. It has been an honor and privilege to serve on the Ellensburg School Board, but I'm forced to recognize that I'm stretched too thin and do not have the resources to be an effective board member. I will be submitting my resignation to Board Chair Tasha Woods at the end of this meeting. It is critical in the years ahead that every board member participate fully in the process of understanding the constraints that are impacting our operations and engaging with teachers, staff, students, parents, and the community to ensure their issues, concerns, and priorities are appropriately factored into the tough decisions that will have to be made. I wish I could devote the appropriate time and energy, but in these extraordinary times, the board needs more than I'm able to give. Although my decision to resign is strictly for personal and professional reasons, I hope that my resignation will provide an opportunity for the board to add representation to a demographic that's not currently at the table. As difficult decisions are made, we need to ensure that everyone feels their voices are heard and respected. We can be committed to diversity, but no one can truly know another's experience. This board is made up of excellent and committed members, but while we have gender diversity, we lack diversity by many other measures, a product of the difficulty of getting people to run for school board seats. As my seat is one of the 2 open seats in the district, anyone who lives within the district boundaries will be able to apply. I want to stress that my decision to resign is only possible because I have complete confidence and respect for the other board members, the superintendent and her staff, as well as for the skills and professionalism of our administrators, teachers, and classified staff. I know that they will do an excellent job of navigating the district through the treacherous waters.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's with sadness and understanding that we hear that. And I want to thank you for both your leadership and your mentorship that you've extended in your time on the board. Thank you.
And Jennifer, can you please send that to me so I can include it in the comments?
I'll do that, Matt.
Thank you.
We do not have a financial update, so we will move on to the superintendent's report.
And my time has been very consumed with working with the focus groups and putting this proposal together. So I do not have a report tonight.
Understandable. That leaves us to our second round of public comment, which I have to bring up and read that out loud again. Matt, do I need point of clarification? Do I have to read out the?
Yep. Please, anyone who joined us.
All right, I will read our public comment guidelines. Individuals wishing to be heard by the board will first be recognized by the chair president. Individuals will be recognized within Zoom by using the icon to show they are raising their hand. Individuals, after identifying themselves by stating their name and address for the record, individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. In order to provide equal opportunity for comments, an individual's microphone will be turned off at the 3-minute time limit. The chair president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole has the final decision in determining the appropriateness of all such rulings. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act 4230, agendas and topic must be set in advance of the meeting. Board members will not respond to public comment during this meeting. Additionally, comments can be submitted to the board at their email, board@esd401.org, and that email is also located in the chat box. At this time, is there anyone who would like to make public comments to the board? If so, please use the reaction that is at the bottom of your screen and has a smiley face. Matt, are you seeing any reactions?
No, I'm not seeing any reactions at this moment.
I do see one, and I believe
Oh,
it is
got it.
actually Tor Blaisdell.
I've unmuted his mic.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to take a second to personally thank Superintendent Haber. She's recently given me something that is of great value, which is some of her time to discuss recent changes in the music program at the middle school and in the district as a whole. She was very generous with her time, and her commitment is obvious and real. I want to thank Principal Snow for taking part in our end of the year celebrations regarding winter musical and fall play. His presence at that event really meant a lot to the students and to me and the other staff. And I have a brief statement here I want to read, but before I read it, I want to make sure that I want folks to understand that it is from a place of passion, not from a place of disgruntledness or anger, and it regards the program in the arts as a whole. I know that these are very challenging times, and I know that we have 2 critical issues coming up, but as I've said to my students at the university, this will pass, and we will go on with our lives, and I think with that in mind, I'm very nervous about what happens under what I call the COVID cloud. So just understand that this statement is not without recognition of that. So my statement and my question really is the following. I and other members of the community would truly appreciate and benefit from clear and open communication from and with the board and discussion with the board or its representatives about how the music curriculum for the school district of Ellensburg is crafted and necessary staffing to meet those curricular goals established. From the outside looking in, this often seems obscure at best and piecemeal and situational at worst. Arts education is as fundamental as reading, writing, math, physical education, etc., and is curricularly mandated by the state. I hope we're not trying to merely meet those requirements, but to far exceed them, given the vast body of cumulative research that supports the idea that arts education is a cornerstone of overall student success. I would hate to think that our district felt only the need to do the minimum when it comes to comprehensive arts instruction. Unfortunately, some conversations I've had with certain employees of the district has put this fear into my mind, and I know into the mind of some other parents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sorry, I'm looking. Jonathan Leonard, I see your hand.
He's been unmuted.
Jonathan Leonard, 1801 North Bluegrass Lane. Board and Superintendent Haber, thank you so much for your work. Ginger, thank you for taking the time to meet with me over the phone and answer my frustration for what was distance learning 1.0. It was an unmitigated disaster in my household. And I know it was for many of the people in my sphere of influence with students in elementary school. And it's nothing to say that our teachers weren't doing their absolute best. I know they were, but they were put in an impossible situation, as were many of us. So thank you for, again, thank you for taking my feedback, Ginger, and really through this plan addressing every one of the things that I had suggested and asked for. I feel heard. I feel like my kids' needs will be met in the coming school year. So board, thank you for that. Thank you for the work you've been doing. And Jennifer, I'm very sad to see you go. So I'm glad to be back in a place where I can pay attention to the board meetings and listen to what you guys are doing. Jason, you literally have the hardest job that has ever been for a school board member to pay attention to legislative issues. So, but again, thank you, board, for all your hard work. Thank you, Dr. Larson, and thank you, Superintendent Ginger Haber.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your response.
You have to spoke here.
The board recognizes Tanikia.
You're gonna
That's Tanika, not Tanikia. So anyways, I would like to start with saying thank you to the administration of Mount Stewart for Ginger listening and hearing. I too am a parent of 3 kids in the Ellensburg School District, and it's been a struggle. I teach here too. But also, most importantly, thank you, Dr. Larson, for your wisdom and your information. Sorry, I'm outside in the wind because I have family inside, but thank you guys so much for hearing us, and we are here to do what we're asked. So thank you guys.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment to the board? Matt, just as a second pair of eyes, are you seeing anybody?
I'm going through the list currently. I see no more raised hands.
All right, I don't either. So therefore we will close public comment. Thank you for all of those who have attended and who left us a public comment either in our email or by coming off of mute. Do we have proposed items for future consideration? Jason, do you want to say something?
So I think based off of the decision the board made today, it's probably not too soon to start thinking about potential policy on face coverings, because it sounds very clear that there is, while the governor can mandate things, how is that going to be enforced? So I think that'll be the next question that we'll see even in our community is how will a mandate from a governor be enforced in our county, and let alone if our schools don't have a directive of that moving forward. So I think we will need to take that conversation on moving forward.
Yes, I agree that we will have to put forward a policy proposal for face masks sooner rather than later to give support and direction to our staff and families. Are there any other proposed items for future consideration?
Yeah, I have one. I think also we need to have a way in the fall to filter the air, especially in Mount Stewart and Lincoln. I think they have more kind of internal air supply. I understand from various experts, the more outside air that we can bring in filtered, the better off the kids are going to be. So I think that's something that also should be basically ventilation and filtered ventilation should be something that we need to work on a little bit.
So Dan, for clarification, are you asking for a report from outside experts on air quality at those 2 elementary schools? I think that's what you mentioned.
Well, I know that in the past when we had the fires going on, the air quality at Mount Stewart and at Lincoln, because they had to close the windows, and so the smoke wouldn't get in, and then the air quality inside the building became a problem. I believe that's gonna, I mean, we can open the windows, but in the winter, that's not really gonna work very well. So I think we already know that the ventilation in those buildings is not top notch. And I think there are portable air cleaners available. I don't know much about how much they cost or how available they are or anything, but they are out there. And I think it might be worthwhile to research that and do something with it.
So Dan, I believe what I'm hearing you for proposed items for future consideration is that you would like to further investigate and talk about this on the agenda.
Yeah, or with the professionals in our, maybe I'll do this so people can see me.
Okay.
So I think we need to talk about it internally for sure. And our maintenance people might have some ideas about it also. But I think it needs to be on our radar.
Okay. So in agenda setting means we can look forward to moving forward productively on that topic. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for proposed items for future consideration?
Well, I've obviously thrown one out to you. You will need to put out word for a nominate or for people to put their names in for board members and then interview them. I'm hoping though that there's a nice block of time where you'll be able to get names in and have an opportunity to interview them, hopefully without requiring them to walk through major protests to get into the interview room. I'm really hoping we can get a range and diversity of candidates.
Jennifer, I couldn't hear anything you said because you were on mute. So we will ignore that proposed item for future consideration. Yes, we will move on with that. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add to the list? We do have an executive session. Ginger, I'm unsure what the label is on it.
Yeah, and it's just to continue with the personnel evaluation. And we can use the same link that we did for the executive session that we used in the study session. That's what.
And how much time should we?
I think we could probably shoot for 9 o'clock.
So we'll start 30 minutes. The board will adjourn to executive session for 30 minutes in regards to to review the performance of a staff member.
Wasn't there another issue as well, another executive session issue?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Meg. I talked with Kim and I think we're gonna hold on that until the 8th.
So the board is adjourned to executive session for 30 minutes and we'll return at 9.
Yeah. I need your help. I think I need a new mouse. My mouse, I was having a hard time with it. It was spinning through. Now it's causing things to flash on and off. It's just been.
That's just because you're on the bottom of the screen.
No, it's because I'm right here. Watch. See, it's flipping around. It's been doing just really bizarre things. Oh, fix that. I don't know why. And like I tried to do on the Zoom.
Hey, Ginger,
Yeah.
make sure you mute your mic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me get back in here. See?
I'm trying to drive.
Oh. Can you mute me, please? Yeah. What's that? I don't even remember what time I didn't say. I'll let you open it.
Um,
The board will be in executive session for another 15 minutes. How many people are in here? One.
Jennifer and Dan have returned along with you, Tasha.
There are 3 of us in here, so we do have a quorum. Everybody gets lost in the Zoom hallways.
There, everybody else comes. So do you want a motion to end this meeting? I move that we end this meeting of the Ellensburg School Board, and I will see you all in public in the future.
I second.
Jennifer has moved and Meg has seconded. With a vote, are we adjourned? Aye, we are adjourned.
Okay.